Administration has started 2026 in the same way that they spent all of 2025, unleashing chaos, crisis, and corruption at levels unprecedented in modern American history.
We are back, and we are joined by Congressman Jason Crow. I want to hear your take on all of this, but I just want to start with whether or not you were briefed, have been briefed, or plan to be briefed.
Nicole, not only were we not briefed, but members of the administration lied to Congress in the months leading up to this operation. As we learn more about the preparations and how this goes back months into late summer, early fall of 2025, there were briefing after hearing where the admin came in and told us this was not about regime change. This was about drug interdiction, and they weren't going to pursue regime change. And we now know the truth.
And that's everyone from the Pentagon to the State Department to people that obviously were aware of the elaborate planning that went into Friday night's
That's right.
operation.
And they hid this because they knew that they couldn't put this to a debate before the United States Congress because they know that the overwhelming majority of the American public does not want to get involved in another quagmire, another nation-building disaster. We spent 20 years, trillions of dollars, thousands of American lives. People can't afford health care. They can't afford their housing. They can't afford their groceries. And here we are spending billions of dollars again engaged in trying to run a foreign country.
Well, what is interesting to me is people are still acting like there's a normal process of trying to figure out what the foreign policy is. And Trump has already revealed that there isn't one, that this is about the oil and the oil companies. Here he is again saying that out loud.
Spoken with the oil companies about going into Venezuela?
I have.
Which ones? Have you received any commitments?
All of them, basically.
Any commitments from the oil companies?
They want to go in so badly.
Did you speak with them before the operation took place?
Yes.
Did you maybe tip them off? No.
Before and after. And they want to go in, and they're going to do a great job for the people of Venezuela.
So Donald Trump, in his own telling, spoke to the oil companies, quote, before and after. That was the answer to the question, did you speak to the oil companies? And he said, quote, all of them, end quote. He said he spoke to, quote, all of them before and after the military operation. So someone was briefed. It just wasn't you.
Well, there you go. I mean, there you have it. This is the Trump foreign policy, if you want to call it that. It is a combination of bullying, just enacting vengeance on people that Donald Trump believes has slighted him, and corruption, just trying to line the pockets of his billionaire donors in the largest companies. That explains 90+% of what this administration is doing for foreign policy. It's not about the American working class. It's not about the American middle class. It's not about actually resolving trade imbalances. It's not about helping Ukraine win its fight for democracy and freedom. It's about lining the pockets of Donald Trump and his family and his cronies, and it's about bullying people.
I thought about all of our friends and all the stories we've covered from Ukraine for the last 4 years when I listened to Donald Trump. I mean, clearly, if he thinks he can do this because he's president and this is in proximity to the United States of America, then clearly Putin is playing a much stronger hand today than he was last week.
Well, think about the example that this just set. As of Saturday, you have China and Russia looking at what just happened, and they're thinking to themselves, why shouldn't I invade Taiwan? Why shouldn't I go after NATO? Why shouldn't I go after Ukraine? Right? The United States is setting an example right now that might makes right. That if you have a big army, you can just do what you want to your less strong neighbors and take natural resources, take oil, take control, or just take vengeance on people you disagree with. That is the example that this president is setting. And just think about the world that we will live in if that now reigns supreme.
The men and women of the military, thank God, as far as we know, all went in and came out of this operation without any injuries or lives lost. We're understanding upwards of 80 people were killed in this operation. What position have we put the military in?
Well, we have repeatedly put our military in very difficult positions in the Caribbean, the boat strikes, the second strike on September 2nd, which I believe was an unlawful strike. This president has a complete disregard for what service above self in military service is about. right? When he talked about on Saturday that he has no qualms whatsoever putting boots on the ground. Remember, that's what he said. Mm-hmm. I have no problem putting boots on the ground. We'll do it if we need to. Well, I'm sorry. I'm a 3-time combat veteran. And when a 5-time draft dodger like Donald Trump bangs the war drums and bangs his chest and acts tough, what it says to me is that some young kid somewhere, somebody's son or daughter, has to pick up a rifle, get into a helicopter, and do the tough work. It's never the elites in Washington that have to do the tough stuff. They're always the ones that talk tough, and then somebody else has to do it. Well, my job right now is to make sure that those young men and women, our military, are not abused for Donald Trump or any other oil company or any other billionaire donor's interests.
When you think of all of the normal things that presidents do, they commemorate World War II, they go to the beaches of Normandy, and they talk about lives laid down to defeat fascism and the horrors of Auschwitz and Hitler. Is there any precedent for the military being used to, again, to quote Donald Trump, for, quote, all of the oil companies who want in there, quote, so bad?
Well, I mean, I think there's a very strong argument to be made that Iraq was about oil and energy. And I fought in that war, right? And I feel deceived. And let's not underestimate the anger and the resentment of millions of Americans, including me, who were lied to and led astray for Iraq. And the thousands that lost their lives as a result of that. The over $1 trillion that the American taxpayer paid for that. The decades of lost opportunity and credibility that we spent in Iraq. Are we not learning any of those lessons? Apparently not, if you're Donald Trump. The American people deserve better and want something different. They want restraint. Of course they want power and they want strength, but they want it used for good. And they want it used only when it needs to be used, right? There is something to be said for restraint, right? You don't always have to punch back in every instance. That's not our job all the time. And that is a lesson that unfortunately Donald Trump doesn't care about. And I'm very, very worried about what the next couple of years have in store for us.
Well, and to your point, 70% of all Americans oppose any military intervention in Venezuela.